Where the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers meet to form the Ohio River, a city was born, or as we call it, Pittsburgh. And this is a story of how it began. The place where the three rivers meet made the region vital for trade, transport, and territorial control, especially in the 18th century. Native American nations, French forces, and British colonists all recognized the strategic value of this point. Control the rivers and you controlled the interior of North America. For the French, it was Fort Duquesne. For the British, it would become Fort Pitt, and eventually for us today, Pittsburgh.
In 1758, during the French and Indian War, British forces under General John Forbes marched west with one goal: to take the forks of the Ohio. When they arrived, the French had burnt Fort Duquesne to the ground. In its place, the British built Fort Pitt, the largest and most elaborate fort in colonial North America. It was named after William Pitt, the Elder, and quickly became a major military and trading settlement.
William Pitt believed that victory in North America would decide the fate of the global conflict. Under his leadership, Britain poured money and manpower into the colonies, sending generals like John Forbes west to secure this crucial point. Pitt's gamble worked, and this frontier fort would soon shape the future of an empire.
Today, the Fort Pitt Museum tells that story. From the war and the politics, to the weapons, uniforms, and the daily lives of soldiers on the frontier. It's built on the original site of the fort, with a recreated fort that brings the 18th century back to life.
But the story of this place didn't begin with soldiers or forts. Long before maps and cannons, there was already a world here.
Before the French laid claim to this land, and before the British marched west, the forks of the Ohio were part of a vast and interconnected network of indigenous trade routes. The rivers served as highways for communication, trade, and seasonal migration. Tribes such as the Shawnee, Lenape, and Seneca not only lived here, but they managed the land, cultivated crops, and held council meetings under trees that had stood for centuries. This wasn't just a wilderness to be conquered, but it was a homeland to many.
When we visited Point State Park, we were able to get an interview with someone who has a much deeper understanding of the site's historical importance, especially in battle.
My name's Jonathan Lady. I'm a museum associate here at the Fort Pitt Museum. The Fort Pitt Museum tells the story of pretty much early Pittsburgh history. The conflicts that we cover here are the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War in the West, mostly, and Fort Pitt's role in both of those conflicts. We also cover the fur trade pretty extensively because that was a big thing that was happening here in the 18th century, because the time frame that we cover is like 1754 to 1792. That's when Fort Pitt is still a very strategic and functional fort here on what was the American frontier at the time. And I think those conflicts are very interesting to study because they very much impacted the history of North America as a whole, not just the United States, but a lot of the countries here in North America as well. And even though we do talk a lot about the sort of disheartening things that happened on the frontier, violence between native nations and settlers, and then the fur trade and the effect it had on those populations, I try to take the opportunity to use this history to not dishearten people, but to inspire them to do better than what they did in the past.
Now, I guess it's time to connect the dots. How is this place related to the three rivers?
Sure. So this fort was built here to kind of command the three rivers, and because the Allegheny flows from the north, the Monongahela flows from the south, and then the Ohio flows out west into the Mississippi. It's the longest river that really flows out west, and so that's why it was seen as like the gateway to the west, and Fort Pitt was the keystone of the frontier. Because whoever controlled this plot of land here pretty much had access to a huge part of the continent of North America.
Just steps away from the Fort Pitt Museum is something truly special. The Fort Pitt Blockhouse. Built in 1764 as a defensive redoubt,
It's the only surviving structure from the original Fort Pitt. That's right, it's not a replica, it's the real thing. Over 250 years old, and it has survived war, industrialization, and even demolition threats. In the late 1800s, it was actually saved by the Daughters of the American Revolution, who still maintain it to this day. It's open to the public and free to visit.
By the mid-20th century, this area faced major transformation with railroads, warehouses, and smoke. Point State Park was created, not just as a green space, but as a place to preserve and honor the past. The outlines of Fort Pitt and Fort Duquesne are marked in the park today, and the iconic fountain at the tip of the point reminds us of the power and beauty of the rivers that shaped it all.
Now, let's take a moment to hear from someone who keeps this history alive.
Hi, my name is Paul Kennedy. I'm the docent at the Fort Pitt Blockhouse. This is the oldest building in Pittsburgh. It was built in 1764 and it's been right here for 261 years. It's almost all original. The stone and brick walls are all original. Most of the wood is. It's made from white oak, from the old white oak trees that were here when the British came in the 1700s. Now this was built by the British before the American Revolution. So this building is older than the United States. It was part of a French and Indian War fort called Fort Pitt.
Learning about the history is wonderful, but how does the Point State Park and this historical building really connect?
State Park, we have this beautiful state park right on our three rivers, and this building is the historic gem of our city. But not only is this the oldest building in Pittsburgh, west of the Allegheny Mountains, it is the oldest building in the United States. There are lots of older buildings in the east of us, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, places like that, but from here west, this is the oldest building in the United States. And that is the story of the Blockhouse. It's been here 261 years, except for one more thing. The biggest danger to this building in all of its history has been the rivers. We have three big rivers here, Allegheny, Monongahela. They meet and form the Ohio here. The Ohio River starts right behind us. That's why this spot was so important, all the river connections. But with rivers, you can have flooding. We've had 30 floods in this building. The last one was in 2004, it got up to about this high. Most of the floods have been that high, but on the wall are the years, how high the water got that year. And it goes up to the second floor, and there's one flood up there that's way bigger than all the rest. 1936, it's on the roof. That happened in March. There had been a lot of snow that winter, a big snow melt, and a big rainstorm at the same time. The waters came rushing down the rivers. Flood stage at the point here is 25 feet. That got to 46 feet, 21 feet above flood stage. This building was underwater for 6 days. They had 15 feet of water in the downtown streets, and people were rescued in rowboats from the second stories of downtown buildings. They have pictures of that. But along the rivers, it was much worse. All the rushing waters destroyed thousands of homes. 110,000 people were left homeless. 62 people died. And it was a terrible disaster for the city, the worst disaster Pittsburgh ever had.
Today, Point State Park is more than just a scenic spot at the edge of downtown Pittsburgh. It's a powerful symbol of historical preservation, urban renewal, and public memory. In the early 20th century, this area looked nothing like it does now. The site where two great forts once stood was actually buried under rail lines, warehouses, and industry. The air was filled with smoke, and the riverbanks were lined with steel and soot. But as Pittsburgh evolved, so did the desire to protect and celebrate the city's roots. In the 1940s and 50s, a growing movement of preservationists, civic leaders, and local organizations, including the Daughters of the American Revolution, pushed to reclaim this space. Their goal? To create a public park that honored Pittsburgh's past while giving its people a greener, cleaner future. Their efforts led to the creation of Point State Park in 1974. Today, the park features walking paths, gardens, and the iconic fountain at the tip of the point, where the Allegheny and Monongahela rivers meet to form the Ohio. Beneath the grass and trees, the outlines of Fort Duquesne and Fort Pitt are marked, preserving their location for future generations to see.
From the clash of empires to a peaceful park, This triangle of rivers has seen it all, and thanks to places like the Fort Pitt Museum and the Block House, we don't just remember the history, we are able to walk through it.